The bar's dim light cast jagged shadows across my fiancée's face as she leaned in, her breath hot with whiskey and urgency. "You're not jealous, are you, Nate?" Sarah's voice was a blade, sharp and teasing, slicing through the smoky air. Across the table, her ex, Derek, smirked, his eyes glinting like a predator sizing up prey. My pulse hammered in my throat, not from jealousy but from the gut-punch realization that this meeting, this staged, humiliating test, wasn't about proving my trust. It was about her hiding something, and I'd walked right into the trap. The evening started innocently enough, or so I'd convinced myself. Sarah had suggested drinks at the Rusty Anchor, a dive bar with peeling paint and a jukebox that whined old country tunes. She'd been fidgety all week, her smiles too quick, her touches fleeting, like she was pulling away even as she clung to me. When she mentioned meeting Derek, her ex from college, I brushed off the unease. "It's just drinks," she'd said, her hazel eyes wide with rehearsed sincerity. "I want you to meet him, to show you're not the jealous type." I'd laughed, told myself it was nothing, a quirky request from the woman I loved, who wore my ring and shared my bed. But as we stepped into the bar, the air thick with stale beer and unspoken tension, something sour twisted in my gut. Derek was already there, sprawled in a booth like he owned the place, his leather jacket slung over the seat. He stood to greet us, his handshake lingering a beat too long, his grin too familiar. "Nate, right? Sarah's told me a lot about you." His voice was smooth like oil sliding over gravel, and I hated how it made my skin crawl. Sarah slid into the booth beside him, her thigh brushing his before she corrected herself, scooting closer to me. A mistake, I told myself. An accident. But my mind snagged on it, replaying the motion like a glitchy film reel. The conversation started light. Small talk about jobs, old college stories, the kind of banter that fills awkward silences. But every word felt loaded, every glance between them a coded message I couldn't crack. Sarah laughed too loudly at Derek's jokes, her hand grazing his arm as she reached for her drink. I sipped my beer, the cold glass grounding me as I fought the urge to demand answers. Was I overreacting? Was this just my imagination, fueled by the dim lighting and the bar's claustrophobic hum? I wanted to trust her. I needed to trust her. But doubt crept in like damp rot, spreading with every shared glance, every inside joke that left me on the outside. "So Nate," Derek said, leaning forward, his elbows on the table. "Sarah says you're the chill type. Not like me, huh? I was always a bit intense." He chuckled, but his eyes locked onto mine, daring me to react. Sarah's laugh was nervous, her fingers twisting the engagement ring I'd given her 6 months ago. "Derek's just teasing," she said, her voice too bright. "You're not like that, Nate. You're steady." Steady. The word stung like she called me boring, predictable. I forced a smile, but my chest tightened, the air in the bar suddenly too thick to breathe. As the night wore on, the red flags multiplied, small but sharp. Sarah's phone buzzed on the table, screen down, and she snatched it up before I could glimpse the notification. "Work," she muttered, shoving it into her purse. Derek's foot nudged hers under the table. I saw it, a fleeting press of his boot against her sneaker, and her failure to pull away. My mind raced, stitching together fragments. Her late nights at the office, the perfume I didn't recognize on her scarf, the way she'd started locking her phone. I told myself I was paranoid, that love didn't breed suspicion. But the truth was clawing at me, relentless and raw. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing air, needing space to quiet the storm in my head. The mirror above the sink showed a man I barely recognized. Eyes hollow, jaw tight, a stranger unraveling under fluorescent lights. I splashed water on my face, the cold biting my skin, and told myself to hold it together. I loved Sarah. We were building a life together, wedding plans, a house, dreams of kids someday. This was just a test, a moment to prove I was better than my doubts. But as I dried my hands, a memory surfaced. Sarah's whispered phone call last week, her voice low and urgent, cut off when she saw me enter the room. "Just a friend," she'd said. I hadn't asked who. Why hadn't I asked? Back at the booth, the mood had shifted. Sarah and Derek were leaning closer, their voices hushed, faces inches apart. I froze, my shadow falling across the table, and they pulled back like kids caught stealing. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. Sarah's smile was too quick, too wide. "Just catching up," she said, but her eyes didn't meet mine. Derek smirked again, sipping his drink, and I wanted to knock the glass from his hand, to demand the truth right there in the sticky, beer-soaked booth. The final straw came an hour later, when Sarah excused herself to take a call outside. Derek leaned back, his gaze following her before settling on me. "She's something, isn't she?" he said, his tone laced with something darker than nostalgia. "Always was hard to pin down." My blood ran cold, but I kept my face neutral, fishing for more. "You two were close, huh?" I said, casual as I could manage. He nodded, his eyes glinting. "Closer than you'd think, even after we broke up. Some habits die hard." The words hit like a fist, stealing my breath. I wanted to believe he was lying, goading me, but the pieces were falling into place. Her distance, her secrets, the way she'd orchestrated this night like a chess move. When Sarah returned, her cheeks flushed from the cold or something else, I couldn't take it anymore. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low, final. Her eyes widened, but she nodded, following me to a corner of the bar where the jukebox's wail couldn't drown out the truth. "Tell me," I said, my voice breaking despite my effort to stay calm. "Are you still in love with him?" Her silence was louder than any confession, her eyes darting away, guilt written in every line of her face. "Nate, it's not what you think," she started, but the words crumbled under the weight of my stare. She didn't deny it. She didn't need to. The betrayal was a living thing, coiling between us, shredding the future we'd planned. And then the twist, the knife I hadn't seen coming. "It's not just Derek," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "There's someone else too. At work. I didn't mean for it to happen, Nate. I love you, but—" Her voice broke and I staggered back, the bar spinning around me. Not one betrayal but two. The woman I'd trusted, the life I'd built, was a house of cards, collapsing under the weight of her secrets. I left her there, crying in the corner of the rusty anchor, Derek's smirk burning in my mind. The night air was sharp, cutting through my jacket as I walked away, the ring in my pocket now a dead weight. I wasn't jealous. I was broken, betrayed by the one person I'd thought was mine. And as I disappeared into the city's neon haze, I wondered if trust could ever feel safe again.